In this lesson, we're going to learn how to use the sweep tool. A sweep or a swept basically is going to be, we're going to take a profile and we're going to sweep it along a path. You'll also see that there are going to be three main ways of doing this, and we're going to cover all three in this lesson. The first file that I have open is called sweeppath.ipt, and it can be found in your Chapter 8 exercise folder. Currently what I have here is just a 2D path, just a line and an arc drawn. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a work plane that's going to be normal to the edge or that line and that endpoint. And what I'm going to do currently, you'll see that the work plane is flipped in the wrong direction, so I will flip its normal, and then I'm going to make that the active sketch. Now at this point I'm just going to draw in a circle, and let's dimension it, just hitting D on the keyboard, and I'll give it a diameter of 3. And that's really all I'm going to do at the sketch level. Now from the part features, I'm just going to go down and click on sweep. Now the path or the profile has already been selected, being that there was only one closed profile. Now the path is going to be our original sketch that we had. And in this case we're going to create a solid. It is my first operation, so I can only do a join. And for the type, this is where I said we had 3 different ones, and we'll look at all 3. So in this case we're just going to start off with the simple path. Now for the orientation, we have 2 different methods. We have the path, which that basically means is that the profile, in this case our circle, is going to be normal or 90 degrees all the way around the path. So let's go ahead and click OK. See what that looks like. So now if I went back and edited that feature, and let's change it to parallel, and you'll see what's happening with the parallel option. If I just kind of flip back and forth a little bit, you'll see that the circle is going to be parallel throughout its entire path. So let's go ahead and click OK, and you'll see that it's a much different result than what we had before. So that's really all there is to using the sweep with the path operation. So I'm going to go ahead and close this file. And for the next one here, let's go back and make the sweep rail the active file. And this too can be found in your Chapter 8 exercise folder. So in this case I have 3 existing sketches already created. The first one is this line, and that's going to be my path. Then I have sketch number 2, which is the circle, and that's going to be the profile that's going to be swept along that path. And for sketch 3, this is going to be my rail, and the rail, as you see, is touching that circle, and in this case it's a spline, so I'm going to actually have that circle go along the path, but I'm going to have its contour be controlled by this rail. So let's go ahead and click on sweep. So again, the path needs to be selected because the profile again was that closed circle. So in this case, just going to click on the path. So you see not a great amount of operation happening there, considering it's just a circle being extruded at this point. But let's change the type to path and guide rail. So now with the guide rail, I'm going to go back and select on the spline, and you'll see that it's changing the contour dramatically now. Now I have a couple different ways of doing this. With the profile scaling, you'll see that it's being scaled in both the X and the Y direction. I could change it to just the X direction, and you can see the dramatic change that is happening there. And if I take it back to none, it's not going to have any scaling whatsoever. So in this case we're back to the exact same result. But if your guide rail was a 3D line, it would have a lot more impact on what it's going to do around that path. So in this case I'm going to go back to the XY scaling, click OK to finish our operation. Now for the last file, let's go back to that sweep surface file that popped up before. Now what I've done already in this file, which can also be found in your Chapter 8 exercise folder, so I have a circle that's been extruded, I have a work plane that's sitting on the top tangency of the cylinder, and then I have this sketch drawn on top of that, which is basically at this point a line and an arc. So if I rotate that, you'll see that it's not been projected onto the cylinder. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is change the sketch to the 3D sketch environment. And there's a tool here in the 3D sketch called Project Curve to Surface. So in this case, the face we're going to project to is going to be the cylinder, and the curve is going to be the line and the arc. So we'll go ahead and we'll select both. Now for the output, I could go back and have it go directly down to the closest point. Or in this case, what I want to do is I want to wrap it to the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And you'll see that it was wrapped around there. So now I'm going to turn off the visibility of the work plane. And let's also turn off the visibility of Sketch 6. So what I'm going to do next, since I have a plane right here, I'm going to make that plane my active 2D sketch. So again, I'm going to go back to the sketch and make sure I click on the 2D sketch. And then also from here, I'm going to use the Project Geometry tool, and I'm going to project that edge so it becomes a point on there. And what I want to do is I want to draw in a square. And the easiest way to do that is use the Polygon tool and change the number of sides to 4, which I have here. And what that's going to do is really going to simplify what we need to do. So in this case, all I'm going to do is select the constraint, and let's change it to horizontal. Now by applying a single dimension, so in this case let's make it 3, you see that it's fully constrained down here. And what I'm going to do next is exit out of the 2D sketch environment. Again, click on the sweep tool. So in this case, the profile is going to be the square. And you're probably wondering why that wasn't selected automatically. Well, since I made this front plane the active sketch, there are a couple different methodologies for figuring out which one. So it could be the circle and the square, or portion of that in between. So in this case, the path is going to be the geometry that we projected onto that cylinder. And in this case, again, we'll make it a solid, but you'll also notice I have different operations that are available now. The cut and also the intersect option are available. So in this case, I'm going to do a cut. And for the path type here, so if I went back and just took a look at here, the guide rail is not an option since I didn't have a guide rail. So I'm going to start off by just doing the path operation. And again, we'll also do it normal to the path. So if I go ahead and click OK, you can kind of see that it's looking pretty good right up to the point that it's starting to go into the bend. I have a much larger intake here where it's going down. It's not necessarily following the contour of the cylinder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that. So I'm going to edit the feature. And for the type, this is where I'm going to go back and say guide surface. So the surface in this case is going to be the cylinder. And by clicking OK, you can see that the profile now is being swept along that path, but it's maintaining the level of depth there by the level where the surface is at, just not following the contour of the path.